Hey guys, what's going on? It's MJ Q&A coming to you from MassiveJoes.com. Awesome question been sent in from a Facebook fan of ours. His name is Rob Geddes. He dropped this question on our Facebook page. We saw it. We said, man, this question is fantastic. We're going to answer in the next edition of MJ Q&A. So that's what we're doing right now. Rob, thank you for sending this question in, my friend. This is a fantastic question. Guys, Rob wants to know, what is the best way to cut and maintain muscle mass? So how do you cut body fat? How do you start burning body fat without chewing into too much of that hard-earned muscle mass that you work so hard for in the off season? And look, man, this is something that we see people stuff up year after year after year after year after year. They go and they cut too hard, and they lose all kinds of muscle mass when they're cutting. So they get to a point where they're lean, they're shredded, but they're skinny, and they burn all this muscle mass off. Then they get in this psychological circle. It's terrible. And what they do is they go and bulk, and they bulk, dirty bulk, and then they go and put on all kinds of fat, and man, it's just a vicious circle. So Rob, thank you for sending this question in, man. This is an awesome question. So the question is, what is the best way to cut and maintain muscle mass? Now look, for me to answer this question, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an example of how people usually get themselves in a situation where they cut too hard and where they burn all kinds of that hard-earned muscle mass. So they do two things generally. The first thing they do is they set themselves an unreasonable expectation of how quickly they're going to burn body fat, or how quickly they're going to lose weight, or how quickly they're going to get shredded. That's the first thing they do. They start with an unreasonable goal or an unreasonable expectation. Then the direct flow-on effect from that is they diet way too hard because they're trying to achieve this unreasonable goal. So they go and they cut their calories to a ridiculous amount, to the point where their body is screaming out to them, and the only thing it's going to do is burn muscle mass for energy, because they're not giving it anything else to burn for energy. So guys, Rob in particular, who sent this question in, the best way to cut and maintain muscle mass is real simple. The first thing you got to do, set yourself a reasonable goal, a reasonable expectation. And look, I can give you the rule of thumb. It is going to depend on how much you weigh, whether you're male or female, those sort of things, how hard you're training, what your weight is at, obviously. But the rule of thumb, and what we use for our athletes when they diet for competitions as bodybuilders or figure competitors, is about maximum weight loss of 1/2 kilo per week. That is a reasonable expectation. Obviously, if you weigh 50 kilos, man, it's probably going to be closer to like 0.2 of a kilo a week. If you weigh 120 kilos, it might even be a little bit more than 1/2 kilo per week. But rule of thumb, maximum weight loss is going to be 1/2 kilo per week. That's a reasonable expectation when you're trying to cut, guys. The second thing is, once you've set that reasonable goal, once you've got that reasonable expectation, get yourself in a calorie deficit that isn't too severe. So when you're trying to cut, let me break this down for you. Let me explain a little bit to you. When you're trying to cut or lose weight, you have to be in what we call a calorie deficit or a caloric deficit. This means the calories that you consume every day has to be less than the calories that you burn every day. So it has to be below what we call your maintenance calories. So the second thing is, make sure you're not in too severe a calorie deficit. So I can give you another rule of thumb. The rule of thumb is no more than 200 to 400 calories per day in deficit. If you're going above 400 calories per day in deficit, that's when your body's got no choice but to burn all kinds of muscle mass for energy. So guys, reasonable expectation, not too severe a calorie deficit, and you're gonna burn all kinds of body fat and maintain all of that hard-earned muscle mass that you work so hard for. Rob, that is the answer to that fantastic question, my friend. Guys, if you've got a question that you want answered in MJ Q&A, you got yourself two options. The first thing you can do, drop us an email at QA, that's the letter Q, the letter A at MassiveJoes.com. The other option, drop us a question on our Facebook page and we will do our best to answer your question in the next edition of MJ Q&A. Don't forget to hit this subscribe button up here. Make sure you're getting all of our new editions of MJ Q&A. Guys, that is Massive Joe's Q&A. We're coming to you from MassiveJoes.com.